All right. Well, it is 12 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. I am really pleased to welcome you all to today's webinar, Self-Care, the Key to Success with Liz Carlile, who's a 2006 grad and founder of Motherhood Unstressed. Liz is a blogger, a TEDx speaker, and host of the Motherhood Unstressed Podcast. Since graduating from the University of Minnesota, she has loved sharing her unique experience on life with her audience, looking to uplevel their life and be less stressed in the process. And who doesn't want that? At the core of Liz's message is the need for individuals to engage in non-negotiable self-care so that they can be fully present with their families, their work, and their life's purpose. I don't want to give too much away about Liz because she's going to tell us a lot more in just a minute. But before we get to that conversation, I have just a couple of announcements, as I mentioned. So want to extend my gratitude and thanks to anyone on the call who's an Alumni Association member. Our members make it possible for us to hold events and programming like this all year long. So thank you to everyone joining who is a member. And if you're interested in learning more about membership and supporting what we do, you can check us out at umnalumni.org/membership. And we have one more webinar coming up yet this year, and it's in December. The title of which is Passion, Purpose, and Authenticity. What the heck am I supposed to do with my life? With Jessie Beyer. And Jessie is a 2019 grad. So this one is geared more towards recent grads who are kind of out in the quote unquote real world and might be feeling a little lost and unsure about what's next. And so join us and Jessie on December 10th to talk about some ways to uncover your values, your strengths, what you're good at, and what your goals for the future might be. We also have a workshop coming up. This one is on your online personal brand and how to demonstrate leadership on social media with Jennifer Radke. Jennifer is a University of Minnesota Morris grad and the CEO of the National Institute on Social Media and has some real expertise in this area. This one is actually going to be physical in person on campus, and there's more information online at umnalumni.org/online-brand. Want to just give you a little bit of information about how to use Zoom. Most of you have probably joined using your computer and your computer's audio system, but you do have the option to listen over the phone by dialing the number displayed on the screen there. And so I'll leave that up for just a minute. And then also you're welcome to ask questions anytime. We want this to be an open conversation. So there is a Q&A button there on your panel of options. So feel free to submit questions for Liz using that panel, and we'll be monitoring those as we go. So without further ado, I am really pleased to introduce Liz. I told you a little bit about her earlier, but now want to officially welcome her and invite you, Liz, to get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself and what has been the arc of your academic and career journey thus far.
Oh, thank you so much, Marissa, for having me. We were talking a little bit about before, and this is just such an incredible opportunity to connect back to the university, to connect with grads, to connect with recent and old, and just share a message like this. We were saying, we wish we had this when we were first coming out. But a little bit about me, I went to the University of Minnesota in, the early 2000s. Graduated, got a job right away in the federal government, was just kind of working to work. I was a major of global studies and French, so I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I'd like to travel and speak languages, but other than that, I didn't really know. So I ended up working in that role for a while, 10 years. And it wasn't until I had my children and I started to get hit with the wave of true adversity and true stress that I started to rethink some things. And I was at work one afternoon, it was quiet, and I started to blog about my experience of motherhood and how difficult it was for me, what truly a wave it was, and how I was dealing with some postpartum and the things that I did to kind of climb my way out of that. And I thought, I'll post this blog, maybe my mom will read it, and that'll be that. It was cathartic. And what happened was, the response to the blog was pretty tremendous. And so I knew that I was onto something. I knew, this was something. I didn't know what it was, but I had to keep going because it felt good and I was helping people and it was healing. And so I started to blog almost every day. Some of the blogs turned into published articles. And then I thought, okay, what's next? And so I said, audio, that's the way of the future. So I started a podcast, and the podcast has been heard all over the world. We're a top 100 podcast, also under the name of Motherhood Unstressed. And from there, I did a TED Talk. And, I don't know if I've had the arc of my career yet. I feel like I'm still on the build, on the climb, but I'm just following what feels good, what feels right, what feels in alignment with my values. And really, it comes back to that wave, that moment where things got really hard and I didn't really know where to turn. And it was really kind of a rock bottom moment on the bathroom floor, with my son as I'm bathing him, going, what am I going to do? This is, I'm going to have to do this for the next 18 years. Can I do it? Am I strong enough? And from there, I truly did find my purpose. So yeah, kind of a long-winded answer, but that's what I'm doing now. That's the work, that's the mission, helping people take better care of themselves, get in touch with who they really are, find themselves through adversity, and to inspire others in doing so.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate you reflecting even on the question and the word I used, arc, because I think so often when we look at other people's career journeys and their life journeys, they look like they make perfect sense. They flow, one decision leads to the next, and it's easy from the outside. And then when you're on the inside, you know that that's not the case, that there's lots of twists and turns and unexpected ups and downs. And I think the more that we share about our career paths and the more that becomes apparent to other people, the more value we can bring to our community.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's in that moment of just being honest, you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know what the right next step is, but to take a step and to find out, and maybe you fail fast and maybe you go right, or maybe you go left, but to have grace for yourself and to keep pushing, again, towards what your values really are, what you're really good at, what feels right, I think is always going to be the right move.
Right. Definitely. And so can you talk to us a little bit about how you came to focus on well-being and self-care as your area of focus?
It comes back to having to dig myself out of a hole and to really just survive, not even just survive, but to thrive. And so for me, in that moment I kind of talked about on the bathroom floor, for anyone listening who hasn't seen the TED Talk, I was bathing my son and he's looking up at me and I'm looking down at him, and I should be very happy and very blissed out, and I just started to cry because I was really just overwhelmed and struggling as a new mother. And so I remembered my mother saying, Liz, if I didn't get my run in for the day, I wasn't myself. I wasn't me. And I thought, okay, I haven't been taking care of myself. I haven't been doing the things I need to do. And so I resolved to make self-care the priority in my life, not for anyone else, really just for me, for myself, so that I could feel normal, feel good, feel happy. And then through that, benefit my child, benefit my marriage, benefit everything, my work. And so that became kind of my single-minded focus, eating right, moving, meditating, journaling, doing something, even in as little as 5 minutes a day, to where I was going to fill my cup, so that I could walk out the door and feel good and feel settled and grounded and like I was before I had kids. I wanted to be back with her. I wanted that woman back, and I got her. And it was because I was, quote unquote, being selfish.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I just kind of takes my breath away that we view as a society focusing on ourselves and self-care as selfish, and what unlearning has to take place there in order for us to make some of those activities that you just described a priority. A lot of us just feel like we need to white knuckle through it. And with that comes a lot of stress. And so let's talk about stress for a second. And I'm curious, what have you learned about the role of stress in our lives through the work that you've been doing? And is there anything that you think we can do to shift our mindset around stress?
Well, that's the perfect way to put it. It's retraining our brains, rewiring our brains to look at stress and self-care completely differently. Because again, as a society, women especially are expected to do it all, and men too. It's not easy on husbands or guys either. We're expected to do it all and to be rock star parents and to bring home the bacon and have these huge houses and, amazing cars and do all the things. And it's like, at some point, you're going to reach a point where you're going to tap out. Either you're going to get sick, or you're going to have some kind of depression or anxiety disorder. It's going to happen unless you do something to save yourself. And so, I think I kind of didn't have a choice but to learn about stress, because I was reaching that point and I didn't like it. And like you said, a lot of people white knuckle through that because they feel like they don't have a choice. And I think I've always been kind of rebellious with everything. And I thought, I don't want to white knuckle this. This doesn't feel good. I want to feel good. I want pleasure. And that probably came from studying abroad in France, where everything was pleasurable. I was like, I need to get back to that. And so, to study stress, to understand what's really going on in the brain and in the body, was really enlightening for me. And really the thing I can say the most is, if you don't make yourself more resilient to stress, illness will come in some form or another. It will come, and you will have to slow down, and you will have to do the things that you needed to do in the beginning to reset. And so my biggest thing for people listening to this right now is, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling overwhelmed, stress isn't necessarily a bad thing. It gets us going in the morning. That cortisol is good for function, all sorts of functions in our body. But if it's in excess, you really start to deteriorate your brain and your heart and every system in your body. So to take that back, practice breathing. 4 deep breaths, breathing in for 4, holding for 2, breathing out for 6. Do that 4 times in a row, and you've activated your parasympathetic nervous system. And what that does is it brings everything back into homeostasis. Something as small as that. That's what I'm talking about. Like, small intentional actions can absolutely change your day, change your week, change your life. And so to realize that, to reframe your brain, to reframe your thinking, like, I'm doing this for me, but also for my family, for my work, for my life, then it becomes non-negotiable, because it's not just survival. Like, you want to rock your life. You want to rock this one life. So do the things that are going to make you healthy and strong and resilient to all kinds of stress coming at you.
So you mentioned a breathing practice. In your TED Talk, you actually walked the audience through that breathing
practice. I didn't even know I was going to do that day, honestly.
Really?
No.
Oh, so that came to you in the moment. Well, for anybody that's watched the TED Talk and has participated in it, it really does work. And you ask the audience afterwards to reflect on what was that experience like? How do they feel now? What does their body feel like? And so you're right. A self-care practice can be as simple as that. Would you mind talking about what might some other self-care practices look like, and how do you recommend somebody get started and finding what might work for them?
I love that question, because everyone is so different. Some people hate to meditate. They hate it. And so that might not be the right practice for them. I personally really love journaling. I feel like it's it's a cathartic experience. It's where you can bring all of your worries and inadequacies, perceived inadequacies, any stress, it can come out of your body physically through the pen and onto the page, and then you will feel light. So journaling is really, really powerful. Walking meditation. You can go for a walk in nature and completely reset and, again, activate that parasympathetic nervous system and come back to your work or to your kids and feel different. You're in a different vibration at that point. That's powerful. And really, for anyone wondering how to start, what's something that you like to do when you were a kid? Is it drawing? Is it reading? Is it walking? Is it skateboarding? What is it? And tap back into those memories of what felt good for you then, what was healing for you then, and bring it back. And so often we think, well, we don't have enough time, or, I've got this, but you do. Think about how much time you spend on social media. Think about how much time you spend binge watching that Netflix show. You do have time. Is it important to you?
That's great. Thank you. So we've mentioned your TEDx talk, and it has more than 4,000 views now in just a small number of months. And I'm wondering, what was that experience developing and delivering that talk like for you? And maybe how has it changed your business since then?
Yeah, it was one of those experiences where everything kind of aligned. And obviously I did a talk on my experience of motherhood and self-care, not knowing when I submitted my audition that it was going to be on Mother's Day. So that was kind of one of the things I was like, okay, this is interesting. But the process was, a 3-minute video that I submitted. I was a part of this free speaker bureau. So you get notifications because I wanted to develop my speaking career. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to see what's out there. This popped up. I thought, why not? The kids were yelling in the background. I'm downstairs in the basement trying to do this video, telling them to shut up. I'm very stress-free. But
the irony in that is
right.
rich,
I mean,
right?
I'm being very real right now. But I submitted it and they picked it up, and then you had to do a longer one, audition, and I did that. And from there on, it was on. Like, you were working with a coach. You had at least 3 to 4 sessions with Zoom, going over the entire speech. They did outfit suggestions. You had to run everything by the team. It was very well organized and very well coordinated. And then the day arrived and it was great. You had a dress rehearsal. And then, like I said before, we started filming here. It's like, you're on, it's a live moment. And that meditation that I did in the TED Talk was completely improvised because I connected with the audience and I wanted them to see and to know how accessible, a self-care practice really is, because you can talk about it. Like we're talking about it now and people are like, yeah, I get it. I know I should do it, but no, do it. And then see how you feel it in your body. And that, I think, changes people's minds.
Absolutely. Before I ask my next question, I just want to put a reminder out to anyone listening that if you'd like to submit a question for Liz, that you can do so by clicking that Q&A button, and we'll see that come through and can ask it. So, I'm positioned here at the University of Minnesota. A common thread amongst nearly everyone listening is that they are alumni of the University of Minnesota. So could you tell us a little bit about your experience at the University of Minnesota, whether that be inside or outside of the classroom, and how did that prepare you for where you are today? Are there any stories or people in particular that stand out in shaping you and kind of how you got to where you are today?
I think the first thing that comes to mind are the people, the friends, the peers that I met there. Day one, moving into the dorms, and my roommate and the people that I met through her, at Territorial Hall, just amazing, smart, driven women, kind, and just that to me was one of my greatest memories, was just the caliber of people that I met at the school. From an academic perspective, one of my first memories, when you're a freshman, you take all of your required courses, and I was not a math or science person by any means. So I think I was in geology or something like that and completely bombed one of the first quizzes. I'm talking about like 2 out of 20 points. And I thought, oh no, what did I get myself into? This is going to be terrible. Am I even going to graduate? Like, how can I go on? And so I decided to meet with the professor. And again, he was so kind and so like, you're going to be okay. This is why you messed up. You just weren't getting this one concept. And then the next test, I got 20 out of 20. And he brought up the quiz in front of the whole lecture hall and said, this was a person who was struggling. She came in for office hours. It was one little thing she wasn't getting. And now look at this. And he used that positive story as an example. And that completely shifted my mindset for the rest of my time there. Someone who taking the time, being kind, being compassionate, being empathetic, really let me know that I was going to be all right at the U of M. Yeah.
And that vulnerability but importance of asking for help is something that I think we stress really strongly here on campus to students. And to tie it back to self-care for a second, I'm wondering if you have any advice around how to ask for what you need in creating a self-care practice. Have you found anything to be beneficial there, whether it's how do you, I guess, acculturate your family or your friends to, hey, I might be doing some things differently than what you've seen in the past, and including others in that self-care, in your self-care goals?
Yeah, I think for me, I was such like white knuckle. I'm a strong person. I don't need to ask for help until I really needed to ask for help. And I think that that's common with a lot of women too. We want to look like we're doing it all, being it all, and rocking motherhood. But if you are serious about this, you really want this for yourself, I think it's wise to tell people that, you know, I need to take more, I need to take better care of myself, and I'm going to start making more time for myself. And people will get on board. People will not have an issue with that, especially if it's 5 to 10 minutes a day. And you could say, hey, you know, I'm going to meditate tomorrow. Do you want to meditate with me? And then we'll touch base, you know, how it went, and just little things like that. If you do need some accountability or you do want that, tell people, because, you know, this is something that's so universal, whether you're a man or a woman, no matter if you are a parent or not. If you have a demanding job, you know, you need to do this. If you want to be more creative in your work, you need to do this, because it's when we're stressed out and we're at our limits that everything suffers. So really, I mean, this should be mandatory if you want to have any kind of success in your life, to have these small moments where you can recover and be more resilient, and then go out into the world and kick butt.
Yeah. From my perspective and where I sit and the kinds of stories and people that I'm connected to, it seems as though the conversation is shifting to be more accepting of self-care. But we just got a question from somebody listening, and I think it's spot on. How can we share our stories, our intentions to be more focused on ourselves without worrying about what other people are going to think of us? You know, there is still a strong, I think, force out there that views self-care as selfish, or I didn't need that. Why do you need that? So I'm just, maybe we can answer this person's question.
Yeah. I love that. I love that question. Good job. No, I think the scariest thing again is when you're making a change. What are people going to think? You know, I'm not the person that they put me in this box as so-and-so, and now I'm shifting. Are they going to still love me? Are they going to still like me? And that can come from family too. I mean, we were talking about before, mothers can be very judgmental if they're thinking that our skills aren't necessarily up to par, and then you're going to be doing this on top of it. Be prepared for a lot of judgment. I mean, and then be okay with that. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, we have one life to live. Are you going to be suffering? Are you going to be a martyr? Are you going to be serving everyone else to your own detriment? Or are you going to live a beautiful life? Because at the end of the day, when you're old in your bed, hopefully, you know, you're going to look back and think, okay, did I do the best that I could do for myself, for my family? Or did I just do what everyone else thought I should do? You know, ask yourself that. And then, you know, when people judge you, they're going to judge you no matter what. You know, when I started building my brand and changing things and putting myself out there, I lost a lot of followers, you know, and you kind of have to be okay with that, because I'm happier now than I've ever been in my entire life. So
it's a scary process to go through, but you're absolutely right. And realizing that, I think oftentimes that judgment is really more about the person who's doing the judging than it is about triggered. You, something in them. They'd like to maybe spend some more time on self-care and aren't sure how yet to make it possible.
A lot of times when someone's improving themselves, someone else is triggered because they want that too. And they're scared that they see you doing it. So inviting them
in to join you might be a path forward.
If you feel like being nice.
Yeah, that's a choice.
Sometimes cutting negative cords is not a bad thing, you know, to save yourself.
As you've gotten further into your business, are there resources that you found to be particularly useful, authors or people that you follow, or other podcasts that you listen to that you think folks interested in this topic might want to explore further? Yeah, so by far and away, podcasts have been my favorite way of learning while I'm doing anything else, while I'm on my commute, while I'm walking my dog, while I'm cleaning my house, whatever you're doing. Put on a podcast about something that you're interested in, or that's something that would inspire you or speak to you. And if you don't know where to start, Tim Ferriss, Rich Roll, there's just so many. Like, Google someone or search for someone who inspires you, or some of the work that they've read. I guarantee you they've been on a podcast, and then go from there, go down the rabbit hole from there. And you will be amazed how much you can learn. And some of the most inspiring people that I found through reading and just articles and things like that, I've invited them on the podcast because I want to talk to them and I want to pick their brain. And so it's like, gosh, there's just so much out there now. There's so many resources. Don't limit yourself because you're afraid or because you think, oh, there's just too much. Like, just start looking, and you will be amazed what will cross your path and the people that you'll meet and the connections that you'll make. And with Instagram now, you can reach out to someone who you really admire, and who knows, they might email you back or message you back.
You just
Social
never
media
know.
does give us that extra access to people that it would have never been possible in the past.
It does.
So to close out our conversation, I'm going to spring an idea on you. Would you be willing to lead us in the same breathing exercise that you led in your TED Talk?
Absolutely. Okay. So everyone listening, I hope if you're at work, just roll with it, bear the judgment. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in for 4. And hold and let it out. Again, deep breath in and hold and let it out. And one more, deep breath in and hold and let it out. I want you to imagine someone in your life who you love. Picture their face and feel the emotion that you have for them beaming out of you. Breathe. Now I want you to imagine 5-year-old you. Picture how your hair looked, what clothes you're wearing, down to the shoes, how you moved. And I want you to call that child over to you and have them sit in your lap. And you can stroke the hair out of their eyes and just hold them. And I want you to feel the love that you just had for that first person. And I want you to send it to 5-year-old you. Feel it. And breathe. And it's okay if you cry. It's okay if you feel emotion you haven't felt in a long time, because that means that you're alive. Breathe in again for 4. Hold and breathe out. And this time when we breathe in, I want you to breathe in light. And when we breathe out any stress or tension or negativity that you might have been feeling before this practice. Flutter your eyes open. And you're done. How do you feel? I feel better.
I feel relaxed.
You do. And that's what I'm saying. Small, tiny, I mean, that took what? A minute. Mm-hmm. And you've already shifted your vibration. And that's powerful. That's powerful. That changes how you go out the door, how you interact with the store clerk, how you interact with your boss or your clients who are demanding. And you can change someone else's energy just by what you admit on a physiological level. It's incredible. And the science is catching up.
Liz, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and your advice and experiences. Someone just submitted via the chat that they wanted to say that this conversation was incredibly relevant and relatable, and truly understanding who they are and what they're capable of. So I hope that others that joined us today feel the same way. I know I'm feeling that. And we wish you all the best in your business and future speaking, and hope we stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And reach out to me on Instagram at Motherhood Unstressed if you have any questions or just want to continue the combo.
And we typically send a follow-up email to everyone that registered after the event. So I'll include that handle in that email so people can find it more easily too.
Awesome.
Thank you, Liz. I hope everyone has a nice afternoon, and you'll join us again for another alumni webinar series coming up.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Marissa.